We don't win enough games. We'll turn down all that money.
I'm sorry, dog, for real. Yo, but dog.
You're listening to JPS on Chicagoland Sports Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. JPS Team JPS on Twitter. Hashtag Best Show. Getting it in. Whew. It's going to take a lot from me right now, man. Going to take a lot from me right now. Boy. Like Big Sean would say, boy. Notre Dame. Golick has a point, though. I mean, I'm not going to hate. Dude, I don't hate on any. I really don't hate on any university other than Florida State.
Don't hate the player. Hate the game, man.
Nah, it's true. It's true. Listen,
don't hate us.
Listen, it's not. Notre Dame is Notre Dame, man.
We started this college football, and this the thanks we get? Come on, man. I'll just say it like this. Hashtag branding. If you don't understand the power of branding and the power of money and influence, then you missed it. You need to go live in a third world country because you just don't get it. As Dennis Green would say, we definitely are who you thought we were. And there is no letting us off the hook. We are indeed. Period. Like it or not. P. As a Hurricane,
I'm just upset.
30 for 30,
I never had an opportunity
the
to
30
play.
for 30, you understand branding, and you understand what a football program can bring not only to a community, not just to a school, but when you start talking about the marketing, the sales, and all those other things, then you find out the importance of what it means to everything outside of that program. Notre Dame has so much equity built up over the years, then when you talk about them not winning, yeah. You know, Brady Quinn was the last successful quarterback, I guess, that you could say at Notre Dame, going to multiple BCS games. Okay, that's going back to the Charlie Weiss era. We're still waiting for Brian Kelly in this era to pick up, for them to be successful, get us to multiple 10-win seasons, something like that. As a fan, I'm tired of the 7 to 8 wins. With all of that being said, should Notre Dame have everything that they have? Of course. Of course. Look at what they built.
I'm not hating. Go ahead, dude. I'm gonna let you do this.
Hey,
my Hurricane fans out there might just get upset with me.
Everybody out there, Indy Nation, welcome in to Jarrett Payton Show right here, Chicagoland Sports Radio. We're getting ready to bring on the line, live and direct, right here. We're broadcasting live from Chicago, State Street, 530 South State Street, Jarrett Payton Studios. Coming to the stage right now, friend of the program. He covers the Fighting Irish for blueandgold.com for 24/7 sports. Jason Sapp, welcome to the Jarrett Payton Show.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Hey, of course. You know, yesterday was media day. We thought it would just be about the quarterback situation and Brian Kelly talking about this team. Lo and behold, ESPN, Rick Reily, they have an article talking about Notre Dame having a seat at the table of the apostles, I guess, as it's called, because it's actually 12 people that go to those meetings when they talk about the BCS. Talk about Notre Dame and the equity they've built up, and do you think they still should be sitting at that table?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. When you look at what the program has done and what it stands for, you know, it's an issue of people continuing to try to make an argument of its irrelevance, yet it's still talked about.
Yeah.
You know, the people that want to, you know, shout how irrelevant Notre Dame is, Rick Reily in particular still chooses to write an article. Timing kind of interesting about Notre Dame. You know, within that same article saying, you know, that the program is rice to them now. How many rice stories have you seen written recently? But to get back to that, I mean, just with, you know, obviously the academic portion of it, you know, how much attention is put on that in recruiting alone, you know, the countless amount of prospects that they had to kind of take a pass on just because they didn't really bring that part of it to the table. Not only that, but character as well. You know, there's a few prospects in particular which, you know, I covered primarily recruiting for the 2013 class where, sure, they're five-star talents, but if there's any kind of, you know, indication of character issues that are coming along with them, Notre Dame's typically going to take a pass in those situations.
Yeah.
But it's one of those programs, as you know, there's a lot of iconic things about it, especially when you get to the campus. It's a feeling that a lot of people have, and it certainly shouldn't be pushed aside or, anything in the sense of being demoted, I guess you could say, to a different division. So.
You talk about recruiting and the academics. Chicago fans can definitely relate to that. As Cremonese own Anthony Standiford that wanted to go there, cornerback, much needed position in the recruiting class for 2012 for Notre Dame, and he couldn't get in because of an academic technicality. He wanted to go there and ended up having to go elsewhere. Talk about the importance of academics, how it played into your life when you were there at Notre Dame, and then measure that as far as recruiting and how it has hindered Notre Dame from staying relevant, I guess, from a win standpoint, with the limit of scholarships in comparison to what it was back in the early 80s into the 90s.
In my situation in particular, I mean, it was a very integral component of my experience just because, I suffered an injury early on, tore my ACL just a week and a half after getting to campus and had 3 surgeries on the same knee within the 4-year stretch. So, I mean, I had great options like Miami, Virginia Tech. Those schools were all within my top 3. But the thing that kept kind of resonating in my mind when I took that visit was not only the experience on campus, but looking at that quote-unquote 40-year decision versus a 4-year decision. So, having to kind of go back on my academics, considering I was no longer able to compete athletically after my 4th year, that just, again, rings true of how important it is to have that aspect of it. And the kids that choose to go to Notre Dame have a true sense of that. Sure, you're going to have your business decisions here and there, but at the end of the day, that's all part of it because they want to have a degree that they know they can hang their hat on and be proud of with the strong alumni network. How it's going to change the recruiting process for them is, again, a lot of these top premier prospects who are kind of, on thin ice in regards to even qualifying are ones that they have to take a pass on right away. Kelly likes to use this RKG term, just in reference to the players that they recruit to the program. That's, as I mentioned, being academically sound, having good character, and, of course, having athletic ability as well. You're always going to want to go out and get guys that can compete for your program because at the end of the day, the goal is to win championships. Has it happened lately? No, but, with a new program in place 3 years into the system, they're feeling more confident, and the team as a whole is kind of buying into that, and you see that progression there too. So I'd say that's how it's hindered them. I mean, of course, they had to pass on some guys, but, again, they're getting guys that they feel are good fits for the program.
Jarrett Payton Show, ChicagolandSportsRadio.com, Jason Sapp on from BlueandGold.com. Come on, Jay. This is hard for me, man. I'm a Hurricane, so this is kind of hard for me to talk about the blue and gold. But I respect Notre Dame. I have a lot of friends who went to school there.
You almost committed there.
I almost committed there. Went on to my visit, or was there with TD, who was my host. Had a great Grant Irons, wasn't he there too at that time? Yeah. I think Grant was actually my host, but then passed me off to Tony Driver because Grant didn't go out, and I needed to see what was going on in South Bend. So I look at it, and I love tradition in anything, not just sports. I just love tradition. I love family, and I see how close the Notre Dame family is, but also for the game of football, which I love. I just believe that having this rivalry back with Miami and also Notre Dame is huge. But how big is it for both of these programs to get back to that national prominence of being good, what that means for college football in a whole?
I think it has to happen, and it has to happen soon, because these are programs that, and like I mentioned before, Miami was in my top 3. I was actually going to go to Miami as a tight end, and I was right within that same era that you were, being with Bubba Franks during my whole visit. Yeah. And it was a hard decision for me to turn down, but when I had to look at both of them in retrospect, I just felt that as far as looking ahead in my future, it was more favorable for me to choose Notre Dame. Now, again, I grew up watching Miami. And, that's the program that was showing. I'm from the Northeast. That's the program that I was watching. Then Florida State. Those were the games I was watching, not Notre Dame games, but I still always knew what Notre Dame was and what it stood for. And these programs that are constantly getting slammed, the ones that are quote-unquote now listed as traditional powerhouses, I mean, the making is still there. The attention is still there, the fans are still there, the diehards, and to me, in order to kind of get back into that realm, of course, both of them are going to have to win. Now, the game in Chicago, I think it's a nice piece. Surely with Notre Dame's media day being yesterday, most people thinking the quarterback was going to be the big talk coming out of it. It was more so about the uniforms. helmets in particular. There's some mixed reviews on that. But in that Shamrock Series, playing in the Chicago Soldier Field, Miami, Notre Dame, I mean, who doesn't want to be at that game?
Let's talk about the elephant in the room with Media Day yesterday. Brian Kelly talking about the quarterback situation, saying that he is pleasantly surprised with the progress of one Andrew Hendricks and also Everett Golson. But Monday, I guess, is the day they start to install the game plan for Navy, and we'll find out who gets 7% of the snaps on Monday, and that'll be your starter. Am I correct?
Yes, that'll be his starter. And frankly, even though they haven't named a starter, which I thought there might have been a slight opportunity that he would have used Media Day to do so, and he claims that he still hasn't decided whether there's going to be a formal announcement or it'll just kind of be a, first man out in the field in Ireland. But Everett Golson has to have the advantage at this point, in my opinion. Reasons being, Brian Kelly said when you're checking off the columns of what factors a quarterback needs to bring to the table in order to be the starter, when they line up, intangibles is the next thing you look at. Yeah. And no quarterback on the roster has more of that than Everett Golson. He's a kid who can make plays on his feet. He has a good arm. He's built his confidence up, and he can stretch the field. And he also presents that option of having a read option in your offense, which is a staple in the Irish offense. So, in my opinion, if they play tomorrow, Everett Golson is the leader. He's a starter of the program. Of course, it'll be interesting to see what happens after that once Tommy Rees is back into the mix. But if Golson wins that game, plays well, then he could for sure put a solidity on that spot, carrying through the season.
Lisa Horn starting a shocker on Twitter yesterday when she posted at VegasInsider.com, had posted that they had Navy as a 17-point favorite in that game in Dublin Ireland on September 1st. Vegas Insider then came out hours later and said it was definitely a mistake. It's the Irish that are a 17-point favorite. So going into that game, talking about this defensive line, everybody worries about the back line, the safeties and the defensive backs. How is that front seven going to be able to hold up against this Navy potent option offense?
The front seven is going to be strong. If there's any component of that defense that I'd say Irish fans really don't have to worry about, it's that front seven. Mike Elson had an interesting quote yesterday, too, when asking to compare the current line to the last line, knowingly Aaron Lynch, a freshman phenom no longer being with the program down at USF trying to play, he actually said he felt it was better. Now, and obviously, talent-wise, there's a huge drop there because there's no doubt in my mind that Aaron Lynch is a future first-rounder. But with all the tools that he brought to the table, it was almost as though he was a bit of a cancer for that group as well. What I mean by that is just, there was just a lot of against-the-grain type things going on, especially practice in particular, that was rubbing off poorly on the other younger players. So to get rid of that problem, the group has come even closer together. And then, with the linebacker group at the second level, obviously Manti Te'o, Carlo Calabrese, Dan Fox, those kind of veteran players are going to be able to be leaders in that group. So yesterday they really started to work on taking those cut blocks and talking to some of the linebackers at Media Day. It's a preparation like no other. You're dealing with, smaller, faster players that are going to be pretty much diving at your legs the whole time. In addition to having your assignment, you have to think about injury prevention. It's just something that is going to be on your mind. So it's a very hard game to prepare for, but I think once you get through that first quarter, kind of get acclimated to it, because there's no true preparation for it, then you really get a better handle of the offensive scheme. And I think in this game, Notre Dame is easily a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown favorite against this Navy game Navy team out in Ireland.